Hey everyone, welcome back to another video. What we're going to be talking about today are a couple of different ways that you can ensure that you're spending your time efficiently when you're coding and that you're able to learn how to code faster. There's a lot of ways that coding can be very intimidating. You can get very overwhelmed by all of the options of like coding languages to learn or tutorials to learn. And what ends up happening is that you give up, you hop from language to language or tutorial to tutorial and without making any progress. And so what we're going to be talking about today are just a couple of different ways you can ensure that you're learning to code quickly, efficiently, and you're ensuring your success. So let's get right into it. So coding just as a topic in general can be very difficult to grasp. There's a lot of different ideas that aren't easy to understand and that are very abstract. And when you're trying to learn how to code, you're completely fresh and a complete beginner, and you're looking at all these different concepts, it can be very difficult to understand them if it's not explained to you in the proper way that you understand easily, right? For example, when I was in college, we were learning like calculus, algebra, computer science, all this different stuff. And what I quickly learned was that just by reading tutorials and reading lecture slides and just reading words on a page, that really wasn't the way my brain worked and my brain understood things easily. What I did understand was when the professor would describe things visually using a graph or a video that makes it easy to understand, easy to follow. And for me, a visual representation of what we were learning was way more efficient than me trying to read a book or lecture slides or stuff like that, especially when trying to understand these abstract topics in computer science and calculus or whatever it may be. So my first tip for you is going to be, before you pick a tutorial to learn or pick a video to watch or just pick any kind of resource that you're going to be sticking with when you're learning to code, make sure you know what type of instruction is the best for you, and then stick to that, right? So if the best way for you to learn is by reading a book, find a good book, find a good resource, a course online that is pretty that just has a lot of explanations, and go with that. But if you're a more visual learner, maybe go on YouTube and try to find some more visual representations of the topics that you're trying to learn in computer science and stick to that kind of resource. It can be very easy to find a tutorial that, people recommend. It's like 5 stars, tons of people have taken it. And then you start reading it and you're like, okay, this is kind of garbage because it's not really what's made for me. So every person learns in a different way. You have to understand how you learn most efficiently and then stick to a tutorial or a course that teaches it in that way. And if it's not taught in the right way for you, you're not going to learn and you're going to just fail, you're going to give up, or you're just going to hop from tutorial to tutorial without any success. So now, once you understand the way of learning that is best for you and that is the easiest for you to understand difficult concepts, what you want to do is find some sort of resource online or in person. Like, it could be a course at your university or some book that you have, but you want to find some resource, go through it one time, and then you want to get rid of it and stop going through the tutorial mode, right? You don't want to get stuck in the trap of going from one tutorial to another tutorial and never actually applying the things you learn. Because while you might think that you're actually learning and becoming a better programmer, if you're not actually doing something with the stuff you're learning, you're really not doing anything, right? You're not making any progress. So what I would recommend is, let's say you're going through an HTML, CSS, like JavaScript, a basic web development course. I would go through it one time, take notes, really make sure you understand and have a good understanding of the basics, and then don't go through it again, but instead try to build a project and build something simple, something easy that you can actually take what you've learned in the course and use it to actually build like a basic website. It could be like a portfolio or a calculator, anything you want, but actually use that information that you learned. The reason why you don't want to go back to the tutorial is because it's just gonna make this habit of, okay, let me just go through the tutorial one more time, and that's not really necessary. What instead you have to do is commit to building a project, and then it's going to be a complex project. No matter how simple it is, if it's your first coding project, it's going to be pretty complex because you've never done this before. And that's fair, that's going to happen to everyone. But instead of treating it as one big complex task, what you can do is just break it down to a lot of smaller steps and just tackle these problems one by one. Right? So when you get to the first problem that you have to solve, you just go on the internet, you Google, you go on Stack Overflow. What you're going to want to do is take that first task that you've made for yourself and then go online and find solutions and try things out. It's not going to work the first time or the second time, probably not the third time, but eventually you're actually going to find something that works. And once you're done that first step, you move on, and then you slowly but surely get closer to achieving your goal of actually building a project. And this way is going to guarantee that you're actually solidifying the things you've learned in that course, and you're not just learning for the sake of learning, but you're actually building something with it. And I guarantee you that once you've completed that first task, it's going to feel great. You're going to realize that you're actually understanding the things that you learned in the course, and then you're going to be able to move on. And eventually you're going to be done that first project and have made so much more progress than you would have if you just, decided, okay, I don't know what I'm doing, let me take another JavaScript course, and then maybe I'll understand it at that point, because that way is a surefire way to go to failure and just never really get to a point where you're ready to start coding. So when you actually pick a project to start to work on, your default reaction is going to be, okay, maybe I'm not ready to start coding yet. All I did was take this course. I don't think I'm ready yet. And that's fine. Everyone's going to have that reaction, but you have to get over that step. If you have that mentality, then you're never actually going to be ready, and you're never going to end up actually doing anything. So what I kind of recommend doing is just starting as soon as you're done like that first tutorial. Just start. You're not going to think you're ready, but you really are going to be ready because you just went through a basic tutorial, right? So it's going to be overwhelming at first. It's going to be scary, but as when you start and then you start Googling and you start actually solving these problems, it's going to be a lot easier to understand. And one of the most important things that you have to do is break that one big task, that one big project that you're working on, into a lot of smaller steps. That's going to make it a lot easier and a lot less overwhelming, because you can just take that first step and then go from there. And one of the last things I want to talk about is that there's always going to be so many different languages you can learn, right? If you go on YouTube and just search up what language to learn for software developers, everyone's going to give you a list of like 10 different languages. There's going to be a ton of different videos saying different things, but what you just have to think about is what you want to build, what kind of developer you want to be, right? If you want to make an iOS app, Google what languages do I need to know for iOS development, pick one, and then go from there. If you want to be a web developer, just go take a JavaScript course, HTML, CSS, a very simple one, and go from there. Don't get overwhelmed with all these like Vue.js, React, all these frameworks, all these different technologies, because during your research, you're going to get hit with all of these different things. But you just have to pick one language, one technology, and stick with that, because once you get overwhelmed, it's the same old story again and again, guys. You can just either pick one simple path and go down it, be committed to that one path, or you can be like a jack of all trades, going through all these different tutorials, going through all these different technologies and frameworks, and then you never actually end up learning anything. And another thing to understand is that you can do a lot of the same things with all these different technologies. There's really no reason for you to learn all these different things, especially when you're just a beginner and you're just trying to wrap your head around these different concepts and just get comfortable with the idea of coding. I'm telling you guys, if you just pick the one path you decide, if you pick this one language, one course, and just stick with that, it's going to make it a lot less overwhelming. It's going to make it way easier for you to actually successfully go through with your plans and really learn how to code. So guys, just a recap of what we talked about. You want to understand the ways that you learn the best, whether that's visually or whether that's through reading textbooks, whatever it is, you want to understand how you learn the best, and then pick a tutorial or course that caters to the way you learn, right? And then from there, you want to complete the tutorial one time, then never go back to it again. And what you instead want to do is make sure you have a basic understanding of, the concepts in the tutorial, and then start working on a project as soon as possible. You want to break up that project into as many small steps as you possibly can, and then start tackling each small step one at a time to make it the least overwhelming as possible, and to ensure that you actually go through with it and don't get overwhelmed and just give up. Now, when you're completing the project, you want to stick to one language that you decided. Don't pick like 5 different frameworks. Pick the project and then pick one language to build the project in, and you're good. You want to keep this whole process as simple and straightforward as possible to guarantee your success. So guys, I hope you enjoyed that video. I hope it makes your lives easier. Let me know if you guys actually have used any of these tips that I've recommended and how it went for you. And feel free to leave a comment down below if you guys have any other ideas of things that can make your coding journey easier. If you guys have enjoyed this video, I would greatly appreciate a like and a subscribe. And as always, enjoy your coding.